And welcome everybody to the Apocrypha Apocalypse. I am Gary Michuta. It's good to be with you back in the saddle again. And let me make sure. All right, just doing some last second touches. Sorry for being a couple of seconds late, but it wouldn't be a chill stream if I was on time. So what could I say about that? Hope everybody's having a great morning. Good Monday morning to everybody, or afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. I always hate it when people say that. And and here I'm saying it. Let's see. As you know, this is a chill stream if you're new to the channel. And that means it's 3:30 a.m. here in the Detroit area. And that means everybody in my household is asleep. So I am keeping it chill here down in the world headquarters of Apocrypha Apocalypse. And sorry for missing last week. And because, as you know, I was out on assignment in Florida with the fam. And it was nice to get a break from the weather here in Michigan. Weather was pretty decent in Florida. Not too bad. I tried my best to do a team stream. In fact, I tried to do chill streams. But the internet connection was just so bad. I just couldn't pull it off. I tried to join William and David and Tony L. and their breakdown of Frank Turek's train wreck of live Q&A. And the sound was just horrible. And there was freezing and stopping and everything. So I had to go in the chat room with you guys, which was kind of fun, and throw in my 2 cents throughout the program. So really nice breakdown by the guys. It was killing me. It was killing me. I wanted to be there and contribute, but unfortunately, it's not God's will. So instead, I was able to throw in a few 2 cents here and there, a couple of funny remarks. And I hope you enjoy that. Also, really, really bummed out too, is SoCal Preston's debate with T-Fan on the Canon. I was thrilled and pumped. I wanted to do a live stream where we break down the debate live, and I just couldn't pull it off technically. William wasn't available, so we didn't do a watch party. And I am so bummed out. I've been looking forward to the watch party for a couple of months, actually, and it just didn't work out. So, apparently God's will that it wasn't in the cards. So I hope, actually, I'd like to find out for you if anybody saw the debate with our good friend SoCal. I want to do a debate breakdown for sure. We'll have SoCal on here, and we'll talk about the debate. Not sure what we got to do it soon though, because I am so bummed up. I was looking for it. Watch parties are always a blast. Yeah, I have so much fun with watch parties on the channel. I just couldn't do it, and plus the situation down there, I didn't really have a lot of free time either. So anyway, let's go to chat room. Let's welcome everybody to the channel. And Johnny, hey, thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate your likes and your prayers. Also, Byzantine Finest in the house. Good to see you. Lino is here, so now I can sit back and relax, and he can take care of all the heavy lifting during the program. And yeah, by the way, take us a second right now and do us a favor. Just smash that like button. It's free. It only takes probably less than a calorie to do, and it helps promote the channel, and we appreciate that. We are on the brink of crossing the 14K mark, which means we're still not big enough fish for people like Cleve to Antiquity to interact with us, but you can get us a little bit closer to that mark. Also, so consider subbing, hit the like, and do all that stuff. Greek Catholics in the house. Yes, we are live. We are live. I know I don't look like I'm alive, but I am alive. Yeah, it's great to be back, Lino. I missed you guys. Honestly, I was going through a withdrawal without doing the chill streams, and it's just really cool to be back home and back in the digs. Thank you, Hollywood Big Boss. You rock. And I have to go, Gary. Great evening, guys. Okay, Greek Catholic. Take care. Thank you for popping on, saying hello. We miss you. Pierre's bad signal is preventing some of my messages from going through. Okay. That's not good. I'm sorry about that. Don't know why that's the case. So anyway, guys, we were doing okay as far as viewers. We got the rhythm going on the channel, but unfortunately with the week break, I have a feeling we're going to have a very small audience, and which is too bad because we're going to kick off life outside of the red zone. And that is, we're going to start moving beyond the first 4 centuries of the church into an area that's rarely explored. In fact, I didn't really explore it too much in my books. And we're going to do our best and someday make it into the Middle Ages and someday into the Reformation. And I think hopefully by then, we'll have enough live viewers that it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun. I really enjoy these chill streams, by the way, because this time of day or night or morning, we reach places of the world that normally we wouldn't reach if we just did it during our leisure time here in America. So, like I said, I hopefully we can build up watching again, and hopefully people just didn't stop visiting us with my week off. We'll see. We'll see. We'll have to go sometime. Yeah, 10 a.m. Yeah, I totally hey, people got to work. We got to live, right? But tell your friends. Let's share this channel with them. Tell them about it. I'm trying to give you the best presentations I can. Today's presentation, I'm going to have to beg you to give me a little bit of a grain of salt because at least the beginning part, actually, no, I've been working on some of these things for quite some time. I'm still not happy with the final result, but I think we're good to go as far as getting at least a somewhat decent presentation of what I want to do for today's chill stream. Of course, we're not going to be able to cover everything, but God willing, we'll be able to cover some of the substance stuff. Hey, Janice is in the house. All right. It's good to see you, Janice. Hope you had a great week while I was gone. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about life outside the red zone in terms of church history. We will talk about Pope Celestine the First, and we might even go into the Council of Ephesus. But I have a feeling we're not going to do the Council of Ephesus today. We'll do it perhaps Wednesday. Because as you know, chill streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday. At least I try to make it as long as God wakes me up at 2 a.m. I'll be down here doing the chill streams. And because Ephesus is very messy in terms of looking at evidence and so on and so forth. And I want to do a decent job, but we'll see. We'll see. So today what I want to do is I'm going to do a recap. After all, what a better time to do a recap after we took off for a week and go through all the evidence that we've seen so far in chill streams. At least I hope I have all the evidence. I've been working on this since 2 a.m. And so, guys, I'm not sure how accurate it is as far as dates and so on. So give me a little bit of grace in regards to that. Let me see here. Okay, we'll just go to it. Why don't we go to it? So, okay, so that's the thumbnail. Brand new one. Night Stalker, one of my favorite programs as a kid. They didn't make very many of them. Which I don't know. It wasn't. I think they ran out of material and budget. It could have been a great show, but it was great for what it gave us. And actually, they did a couple of TV movies that I thought were pretty decent. And actually, that's where they got the idea of doing a series, Night Stalker series. I don't know. Had the networks put some more money behind it and so on, it probably would have been a huge franchise. So let's talk about life outside the red zone. But before we do that, let's review life inside the red zone. Now, the term red zone, Americans will be familiar with it. I'm not sure whether red zone is ever used outside of America, but American football, the red zone is I believe it's the 30-yard line to the goal, right? And that is the most important part of the field. That's where the defense has to be on its top game because the offense is on scoring position. So it's really where the battle of the game of American football it really takes place in a way. So red zone, very, very important. Once you're in the red zone, you're driving towards the goal. And really the red zone, when it comes to the canon, is the first 400 years of the church. This is the most important part of study because, I don't know, it is a little artificial, but after the 4th century, we're just dealing with things that don't really pertain to canon formation that much because the canon is pretty much established. I think everybody would agree. The canon is pretty much established from 4th century out. Of course, Protestants, Catholics have very different understanding of that canon, but the 4th century onwards, kind of the aftermath of the stuff that happened in the first 4 centuries. And of course, this is the red zone. This is where we want to determine what was the deposit of faith. What did Jesus and his apostles hand on to the church as inspired scripture? And the evidence for that is very important from the earliest church fathers. So right before we went on, I threw this list together. I was hoping to make a summary list of all the early church fathers that we looked at in this program in depth. So if you're new to the channel or you're new watching this and you're like, hey, I would really love to find out how Polycarp used the Deuterocanon, you're in luck because the chill stream we did a chill stream with Polycarp and broke it down for you. So all these things are broken down in detail. So you can just do a search on the channel and find the particular person. Okay, so starting at the earliest evidence, the earliest of the earliest evidence. Those are known as the Apostolic Fathers. And of the Apostolic Fathers, we have First Clement, Barnabas, Polycarp, and Didache. All of them use the Deuterocanon in a way indistinguishable from canonical scripture. And in some ways, very important ways, too. For example, Polycarp uses Tobit to confirm doctrine. And then we move to Justin Martyr. Justin doesn't use the Deuterocanon very much. However, we put it, I probably should have had this as white or something like that, because it could go either way in terms of usage. But the problem is with Justin, much of his writings from his dialogue with Trypho, the Jew, and he realizes Trypho doesn't accept the same scriptures as Christians, so he's not going to use anything Trypho doesn't accept. So it's not surprising he doesn't use the Deuterocanon. Moving on, we have Melito, Sardis, and the Brenios lists. Now, Melito, Sardis, of course, all we pretty much have is his list, a couple of fragments, and a sermon. Not very much in terms of his use, so that's why I put it in yellow. Also, Brenios list, all we have is this list. And We're going to talk about that. We're going to go into the list in a couple seconds. So I have it as yellow, simply because we just don't know, looking at the rest of the stuff he wrote, whether he used the Deuterocanon, qualified or anything like that. Athenagoras of Athens, if he uses Deuterocanon, very positively, as does Irenaeus of Lyon, the great disciple of Polycarp, who's the disciple of St. John. Also, Tertullian, the part-time early church father, ecclesiastical writer, positive evidence for the Deuterocanon, so we put it in green. So that's the color coding, by the way. Green means they use these books as inspired scripture, sometimes very explicitly, other times implicitly. Then we have Hippolytus of Rome, positive. Clement of Alexandria, positive. Cyprian of Carthage, positive. Origen of Alexandria. Now, Origen uses it very explicitly as inspired scripture, but he also has a list that does not include the Deuterocanon in it, although he does mention Maccabees. Then you have Methodius of Olympus, positive. Didymus the Blind, positive. Alexander of Alexandria, positive. Victorinus of Patuo, positive, although there is one passage where he's talking about the book of Revelation and the 24 elders. We went into that. You can check it out. I put him in the positive category. Athanasius of Alexandria, positive, very positive in terms of his usage, although he does have in the 39th Festal Letter a list. And as you know, he divides scripture or religious literature into 3 different divisions: canonical, read, and Apocrypha, which, by the way, he excludes the Deuterocanon from the Apocrypha category, and he uses it as sacred scripture. So that's why I put him in green. Same thing with Cyril of Jerusalem. I believe he has a 3-fold division in his list, but everywhere else, he's very positive. Leporius, positive everywhere. He does have a list. And actually, one of his list, or in his list, contains Tobit and Judith. So his 24-book computation has a couple of deuterocanonical books in it. But I put the list in yellow just because I didn't come up with a color for a mixed list. Codex Claromontanus. Now, this is just a codex, but we have a table of contents, which is older, positive. It includes the Deuterocanon in it. We've gone into that in detail. Council of Laodicea actually doesn't have a list, and that's why I put it in blue, because it's a spurious list. It was added later on. Then we have Phobat of Amphiliochus of Iconium. Not much we could draw upon in terms of usage, but it appears positive. And of course, he has a list that does not have the Deuterocanon in it. We have Basil the Great, positive. Gregor Nazianzus, positive, although he does have a list, and which excludes the Deuterocanon. Gregor Nyssa, Eusebius of Caesarea. We have multiple lists from Epiphanius Salamis, but his use is very positive. He uses these books as a divine scripture elsewhere, his Panarion and other works. Theodore Mopsuestia. Actually, I shouldn't have put that in green. I should have gave it chartreuse or something weird. So that's an error right there. Theodore was operating off some very strange personal computations, and it's kind of mixed, oddly enough. There's proto-canonical books Theodore did not accept, and perhaps Deuterocanon could be accepted. It's very weird. So we should put him in the weird category. St. John Chrysostom, positive, definitely positive. St. Ambrose of Milan, definitely positive. Then we have the Mommsen Catalog, Cheltenham list. It goes by either one of those titles. We went over that. It's positive. You have the Apostolic Constitution / Canon, 85th Canon. It's the list, but elsewhere in the Apostolic Constitutions, Deuterocanons use positive, and the list is also mixed, by the way. Rufinus of Aquilea, he is positive in his writings, but his list excludes these books, puts in the second category of the threefold division. Gregory of Elvira, positive. Simplicius Severus, positive. Pope Damasus I, some of you might know that as the Council of Rome, but I believe it comes from Damasus. I don't think it was the product of the council. We went into that in depth, and so I have it positive with the list indicated in green. So that means that the Deuterocanon is affirmed. Then, of course, we have St. Jerome, which we spent a lot of time on very recently. And Jerome, of course, is in orange because he actually assigns the Deuterocanon to the Apocrypha. He rejects these books very clearly in his writings, and he has a list. So he's what we said he is, right? But so notice that's the first negative, truly negative early church father in the red zone. Then, of course, we have the great St. Augustine, very positive, has a list. Then the string of North African councils, Hippo Regius, Carthage 3, Carthage 16, all of them, of course, affirming the canonicity of these books, along with Pope Innocent I in his list in 405. That's the red zone breakdown. If you've been watching the chill streams for a long time, that's a recap of pretty much everything we did. Forgive me if I'm missing people. I don't know, you veterans, did you notice I missed anybody? I tried to make this as thorough as I could, but I hope I didn't mess that up. I already messed up a little bit with Theodore Mopsuestia, so my apologies with that. Now, here's a chart that comes from my book, The Case for the Deuterocanon. And by the way, thank you. It was very, I wouldn't call it a vacation. It was like a workcation kind of, but it was very nice. And yeah, thank you. It's good to be back, Catch Fathers. So, okay, your eyes are probably being blown out by this huge white chart. This is, I just want to point this out in terms of a timeline. When we're looking at list, the names on the top are usually the ones associated with negative lists that speak negatively with the Deuterocanon. The ones on the bottom are those that spoke positively in terms of the Deuterocanon. And I just thought it would be cool to put this up because, as you can see here, in terms of early church fathers actually making a list and talking about books of scripture, you can see it's very sparse. You really don't run into anything until Cyril of Jerusalem in 340s. And then there's a little bit of a break. Then it picks up again with Athanasius, the spurious canon of the Council of Laodicea, Cheltenham list. And then you have Jerome. And remember, all these people are associated on the top here. Jerome, Epiphanius, Gregory Nazianzus, and Filioquius. They all had correspondences or had contact with one another. And those represent this little cluster right there at the end of the 380s into the 400s. And it's also around this time, of course, you have the Cheltenham list pops up roughly around before Athanasius. But then you have all the North African councils, Augustine and Pope Innocent I, rounding out the kind of giving the last word of this period. And yeah, thank you, Byzantine. I appreciate that. Okay. So that's the red zone, folks, chronologically speaking. All the fireworks are within what, like 4th century, right? Very little from the first, second, third, most of the 300s until like halfway through the 300s. Then you start having these lists. So for what it's worth, that's kind of the chronological breakdown. And let's talk about list. And we've gone into this in detail on the channel. So if you have any questions about any of these things, just do a search and you'll find plenty of material on the channel that goes into excruciating detail on all these points, more detail than you would hope to ever know about these lists. Because this, ladies and gentlemen, this is where Protestant apologetics focuses almost exclusively on lists. Because as we just saw, let me go back, there is not a lot of orange, right? There's a lot of green. And basically, the only time you have anything that approaches the Protestant canon is with list. And not all lists are alike. In fact, I believe you have to treat each one on a case-by-case basis. Because why? Because a list is basically meant to represent something. Think about that. Every list that you make is meant to represent something. A grocery list is meant to represent the things that you need to buy for groceries. I mean, duh, right? Or you can make a list of your top 10 sports figures, top 10 songs, right? Your playlist when you're working out, listening to jams, right? These all represent something. So just saying it's a list doesn't tell you anything about it. It just means that there's more than one item on there. But what's really important is, what is the list meant to represent? And when you take that little extra step, what you find is the Protestant case collapses. And that's why we spend such an extraordinary amount of time on this channel looking at lists. Because I believe they don't take that extra step to find out what it represents. They just assume every time you have a list of the books of the Old Testament, that is the objective canon. That is the total amount of all the books inspired by God, and anything that's not on this list is to be rejected as uninspired Apocrypha. That's the assumption Protestants have going into list. And the problem there is they're not looking at what these things are meant to represent, because they aren't not necessarily meant to represent the Christian canon, i.e., all the books inspired by God that's handed on to us as Scripture. But actually, what they're meant to represent is different things. For example, Melito Sardis. We looked in depth on that, and I think we have very good probative grounds for saying Melito Sardis' list was basically, he wanted to reproduce the books that could be used to evangelize the Jews. So his list is merely those books that Jews and Christians mutually accept. That's all. It's not meant to represent the totality of inspired scripture used to confirm doctrine, within the church and outside the church. It's just strictly outside the church. Now, the Brenios list, this one is has a lot of difficulties with. We don't really have context. All we have is the list, and it's a very strange list. And dating. Dating is another real important question mark. Scholars are unsure how to date the Brenios list. Some put it extremely early. Others put it extremely late. We don't have a clue where to put this list, in other words. At least there certainly is no consensus on the dating. And I think it's possible, although I don't have probative grounds for it. But to me, it seems like, since it's trying to reproduce the Aramaic names of books, and it's in a Christian Bible, I think this possibly could be used for Jewish Christian polemics, but I can't be sure. So there's a lot of question marks with the Brenios list. Actually, Byzantine Finest just made a comment here. Let's see. Something Prots have hard to understand because they always try to say Catholic teaching didn't start until the 4th century, not realizing that all these teachings were because of Rome legalizing Christianity. I'm not sure what your point is. Oh, wait, I'm missing the first comment. That's probably pretty much after Christianity becomes legalized in the 4th century. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now I got your point. Sorry, I should have did both your points. Yeah, in terms of evidence and freedom to do councils and things like that. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Next is Origin of Alexandria. We looked into it. Origin is just basically reproducing the books that the rabbis accept. So, and his main point actually wasn't to reproduce. I don't think it was so much so that Christians could know which books to use for evangelism. My personal take is that his list represents a kind of mystical correspondence of numbers and names, possibly drawing from rabbinic sources. But I know for a fact he is not using it as the Christian canon because he doesn't abide by it, right? He uses these books very frequently as sacred scripture, only occasionally qualifying them. And when he qualifies it, it's not exactly sure whether he's qualifying it because he's trying to say the Jews don't accept him. Athanasius of Alexandria, we spent an awful lot of time getting into extraordinary detail on his list. That represents basically Jewish heretical polemics. So he's not giving the Christian canon per se. It's more, he wants to show which books you can use against the Jews and which books are basically in-house instruction. And so you got that. And by the way, Athanasius is green on the other slides because he uses them to confirm doctrine, the Deuterocanon, that is. Seal of Jerusalem, we looked at catechetical lectures. Definitely his list is an attenuated list to help new Christians avoid polemics with Jews, thorny issues over canonicity disputed works. So again, for those who are just joining us, we're going just reviewing the stuff that we've looked at so far on all these show streams and looking specifically at list. Protestants just take the list at face value and assume that what they're giving is the Christian canon, i.e., the totality of inspired scripture capable of confirming doctrine. When actually, if you look at what these lists are meant to represent, they're not Christian canons. Much of it is just trying to inform Christians which books the rabbis currently accept because there's been a change in Judaism in terms of sacred scripture. Hilary of Poitiers basically is piggybacking off Origin. So it would reflect Jewish usage within the diaspora, I believe. And remember, he has that weird thing where he gives a 24-book computation with Tobit and Judith as part of the 24 books, which I think would probably be representative of how the rabbis in the diaspora would compute the 24 books. In other words, they are using these books as sacred scripture. Then, of course, we looked at the Council of Laodicea. And by the way, the Council of Laodicea is authentic. It's the last canon that's given that's spurious. And I put it in purple because it really is spurious. It's not part of the Laodicea. And the weird thing is, guys, there are people today that will cite this 60th canon as authentic. So be careful of fake quotes. It's not authentic. And it's understood to be spurious for a couple of centuries now. So there's really no excuse for using it. We looked at the Codex Claromontanus, and basically that is a table of contents. It's Christian and includes the Deuterocanon. Amphiliochus and Gregory Nazianzus, what they wanted to do in their list was to present basically which books are universally accepted. and to basically give those books that the certainty of their inspiration is not disputed by anybody, including rabbis. So it reflects the rabbinic canon, and it's advice given to Christians, but it is not giving the totality of the canon, the inspired books. How do we know this? When we look at usage, they use these books as inspired scripture, even though they're not on their list. And in fact, if you look at the list, there's, I think, good indications that that is what's at work there. So so look at this, guys. Look at all these lists. So far, only the Codex Claromontanus is a Christian Old Testament canon. All the other ones reflect, in one way or another, Christian Jewish polemics. In other words, they're attenuated in order to show which books are effective in evangelizing the Jews and therefore beyond contention. We move to Epiphanius Islamus. Brilliant Epiphanius. He actually produces several lists. In fact, I think there's 2 weights and measures lists. So that's a mistake on my part. My apologies. Although they'd both be categorized the same way. The Panarion, section 1, heresy 8, where he's treating Judaism. He talks about the books that the Jews had coming out of Babylon. And then he also notes that there's wisdom in Sirach as well, that they have apparently in their scriptures, but they're disputed in terms of their authority. So that's very interesting. And that, of course, would reflect Christian Jewish polemics. Then the 2 lists in weights and measures. What do we got there? Well, they both reflect the rabbinic understanding. And then finally, we have an incomplete list in heresy 76. And unfortunately, it's incomplete. He just lists, he's just saying, look at all the places where this particular word is used in the Holy Scripture. You go search from the law of Moses, and he just kind of like jumps from one place to another, and he says, wisdom Sirach, and find the rest of Scripture. So clearly that's the Christian canon, but unfortunately he doesn't give, it's an incomplete list. He wasn't intending to give a definitive, comprehensive list of all the books of Scripture. So even Epiphanius, when he talking about Christian things that Christians would accept, includes the Deuterocanon. When he talks about Jewish computations, it's excluded, or at least wisdom and Sirach are flagged as doubtful or disputed. Then this brings us into the North African councils. And this is really where you actually have authentic Christian canons given on the contents of canonical scripture. And we have 3 of them within the umbrella of North African councils: Hippo Regius 393, Carthage 3, 397, and Carthage 16, 419. All of these represent what becomes the African Code, which becomes a body of legislation, which is accepted in Canon 1 of the Ecumenical Council of Second Nicaea. So that's adopted there, and it's given, it's affirmed by the Ecumenical Council along with the other canons. And so if anybody ever says these are just local councils, they don't really mean anything, they're wrong. It's part of this African Code, and all of them have all 7 deuterocanonical books listed. And all of them make up the body of what we see as the historic Christian canon. And we know this because chances are the councils came up with how they know these books are scripture inspired through Augustine's methodology on Christian doctrine, where he basically is looking for those books that were accepted by apostolic churches and read by consensus throughout the world. And that is identical to the Council of Trent's canon. Moving on, we have the Mommsen catalog, which represents the Donatist. But since Catholics and Donatists appear to have the same canon, it's definitely positive in terms of the deuterocanonical books. We have the apostolic canons from the apostolic constitutions. This is a Christian canon, although it is a bit weird. And there should be, you should note that the apostolic constitutions is a forgery, and a very explicit forgery. I mean, it tries to present itself as coming from the pen of Clement of Rome, which it was not. And it's and the presentation of the New Testament canon is very weird in that regard. Then we have Rufinus. Rufinus, the great one-time friend of Jerome, then who became bitter enemies with Jerome. He provides a list. I would say the list reflects, kind of like with Athanasius, Jewish-Christian polemics. In other words, which books you can use against the Jews in polemics successfully. Then we have Jerome. And here you'll note, this is the first list that he's proposing for Christians to accept only the proto-canonical books. We don't find it anywhere so far in all these lists. No one does that. And then we could always throw in also there's good evidence to suggest that he vacated this position later in life. Moving on, we have Augustine, who is very firmly Christian and has the Deuterocanon, all 7 books in there. And Pope Innocent I list to the bishops of Gaul, replying to Leporius, who was a patron of Jerome, who basically pinged the Pope as to which books actually are canonical. Now, this is very fascinating because Leporius was a patron of Jerome. He knew Jerome's views on the Deuterocanon and his ideas about the canonicity, yet he himself has to ask the Pope what exactly is the true and authentic list of canonical scriptures. And the Pope sends a decretal letter, which basically is a ruling by a question posed to the Holy See. And the ruling is the list of 405, which affirms all 7 deuterocanonical books. And that's a very important piece of evidence. Very important. So, guys, like I said, Protestant apologetics focuses exclusively on list, I would say. They don't take into account how these early church fathers use these books. They don't take into account what these lists are meant to represent. They just assume every list is a Christian list. Every list lists every single inspired book to the exclusion of none, and except for, of course, all these other lists that have the Deuterocanon. For some reason, they just disappear from the radar screen. And that's the red zone, folks. That is all the stuff that we've looked at up until Jerome and Innocent I, which makes us go to the current material. So that was just a huge review. By the way, if anybody has any questions, please throw it up there in the chat room. And let me just take a second to encourage you guys. Please hit that like button. Tell your friends about the channel. Let's try to grow the channel if we can. We're almost to 14K. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. You could put us over the top, and we'd appreciate that because it helps the algorithm so that more people can have access to this information that you'll probably find nowhere else. At least I doubt if you find it. I'm sure there's people out there doing it, but at least all this information in one channel. I don't think there's anything out there like it. So Byzantine Finest says, laugh out loud. That's what I was trying to say earlier, how the world accepted the consensus of teachings throughout the world. But you worded it way better, Gary. Okay, thanks. I appreciate I hit that point. That's okay. That's amazing. I say anything that's comprehensible this early in the morning, honestly. They don't do it like you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Much love from the chat room. Well, okay. With that in mind, why don't we go to at least the next person, Pope Celestine I, who reigned from 422 432. Now, we're outside the red zone, guys, so this is area that Protestant apologetics will now pick and choose certain figures like Gregory the Great, Damascene, John Damascene, and a couple others, Pseudo Athanasius. They'll just pick and choose a couple of figures in this period, not really spend a lot of time on them, and then jump to Luther. So this is the great lacuna in Protestant instruction. When you're reading church history, you have the church of the first 4 centuries, and then all of a sudden you're at Luther. And everything else is flyover country. So here in the Apocrypha Apocalypse, there is no such thing as flyover country. We're going to look at this in excruciating detail. And because it's important to get a lay of the land, right? Because if the North African councils are deviating from the historic Christian canon, like Protestant apologists would insist, or they'd have to radically reinterpret those lists, then we should expect to find evidence for that afterwards, right? And what do we find? Well, we find people like Pope Celestine I. Just a little bio. Celestine is of no small importance, and this is from Jurgen's Faith, Early Fathers, by the way. No small importance for his dealings with the Eastern Patriarchs, especially in regards to Nestorius and the Council of Ephesus, 431 AD, except for a fragment from a sermon that appears in the Corpus of Letters, number 10. His letters are his only surviving writings. His pontificate is dated September 422 AD to his death in July 432 AD. So while we do have surviving letters, Jurgens notes that these letters, written within that same space of time, the corpus of Celestine's letters contains about 27 items, which 16 are generally regarded as authentic. The usual source for the text of his letters is the Ming Petrologia, volume 50, and that's what I used, by the way. So does he use the Deuterocanonical books? The answer is yes. Now, this is a machine translation, guys, because I couldn't find any English translations for Celestine's letters. And by the way, this will probably overlap a little bit with our Council of Ephesus overview. And he says he had certainly read the simple holiness and holy simplicity are to be feared rather than to be highly intelligent, Romans 11:20, and elsewhere, the higher things are not to be pursued, Sirach 3, chapter 3, verse 22. And again, if anyone preaches anything other than the one that is preached, let him be anathema, Galatians 1:8-9. However, at the end of the world, when the solicitudes extend itself to the extent of the Lord permitted, so on and so forth, the important thing is, notice he's quoting Romans, Sirach, Galatians, back to back, no qualification or distinction in this particular letter to Nestorius. Letter 22, Celestine again quotes from Sirach, from which opinion our wisest man did not deviate at all, who said, and then he quotes Sirach, and then he quotes Psalm 52. No qualification, distinction. He uses both texts in identical fashion, i.e., Scripture. Actually, I missed it. Actually, he has a quote from Luke 1. If you look at the top of the Ming clip there, he has Luke 1, Sirach 10, and Psalm 52. All of them back to back, no qualification or distinction. In section 7 of letter 25, again, he has a quotation from 2 Corinthians 2:15 and Sirach and Titus. No qualifications or distinction. And hopefully the machine translation, guys, the Ming has really terrible fonts, I guess you could say. I know there's a word for that, but at 4:20 in the morning, I'm not even going to try to remember what that is. It's hard to read. So as I'm doing machine translation, I'm trying to type into Google the Latin. That's how I get these translations. So my apologies, guys, if the machine translation is not very well because I misread a letter or something. This is actually pretty clear, but some of these are pretty blurry. So forgive me for any mistakes on this presentation. So here we have letter 25, section 16. We have heard him acting against the law and unjustly, alluding to Psalm 74. What consolations are pursued? Among other, the heavenly ones were present. Then it continues. As you can see, he's quoting Psalm 91, Psalm 13, and then he introduced, namely, that which we read, and then he quotes Wisdom 4:19, and then finally Matthew 8:22. And of course, all of these are without qualification or distinction. He's just quoting scripture, including Deuterocanonicals, back to back, no qualification or distinction. So if there's any non-Catholics out there watching, just ask yourself, what would happen if your pastor did this, right? What if he's quoting scripture left and right and he throws in a deuterocanonical text without even mentioning it's a deuterocanonical text or a so-called quote-unquote Apocrypha text, right? I think the congregation would probably notice and be kind of upset that he's using human Apocrypha along with the inspired scripture. Well, the fact of the matter is that you'd be right. In terms of Protestant theology, there would be a hubbub. But notice with Pope Celestine, he just goes ahead and just quotes. No problems whatsoever. So that indicates that he accepts as sacred scripture. So let's see. I don't know what to do right now. I think we're at an hour. And I don't want to squeeze the Council of Ephesus in a half hour. That simply would not be the case. Plus, I'd like to have another day just to go over the slides and try to work it out a little better so it's a better presentation. But I think we're just going to stop there, guys. We'll just do a shorter chill stream today. Because we went over in depth the red zone, and now we're outside the red zone with Celestine. But there's lots of really interesting things to come. So we're going to go over the Council of Ephesus, which uses deuterocanonical books, at least generally. I don't want to spoil it, but basically, there is no official Acts of Ephesus, but there is a collection of text related to the questions in Ephesus. And those texts use deuterocanonical books. So I think that's important evidence. And we're going to do other things too. We're going to look at Prosper, St. Prosper Aquintaine. We're going to look at Leporius, the Confession of Leporius, and other things. And all of these are not too long after the red zone. This is right after the red zone. And we're going to try to see if there's any kind of shock that these North African councils affirm books that were never used as sacred scripture. And spoiler, guys, they don't. In fact, they go on using it as sacred scripture with anything else. So yeah, so I look forward to that. Yeah, so I'm getting thumbs up and stuff from the chat room. Yeah, we'll end it here. Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts? In fact, I'm going to do something I normally don't do on chill streams, and I'm going to start doing it, I think, more frequently. I'm putting the link up in the chat if anybody wants to come on board and wants to chat a little bit about the Deuterocanon or anything else you'd like to chat about. Anybody out there, did you see the debate with so-called Preston T fan? I'd love to get an update. Love to hear how that debate went. I am so bummed out I wasn't able to do a watch party. Watch parties are a blast. Yes, business event. Yeah, very important. Ephesus and certainly theologically. Yeah, I do too. And fact, I'm making it my best effort to try to get the word out for non-Catholics to assess this. And by the way, guys, you don't really know this because you're kind of out of the loop. So I'll put you in the loop. I do get emails from Protestants who watch this channel. In fact, some of them support the channel, and they really appreciate the information. And some of them have come around and actually affirmed these books as inspired scripture. Thanks be to God. But I'd love to reach out to more people because, like I said, this is like one of those areas in Protestantism. There's a lot of legends and lies and misinformation, disinformation, ABC, anything but Catholic. And and so they'll distort all this stuff or they just won't bring it up. So that's what we try to do in this channel. And you can help us reach more people by telling friends about it, sharing, liking, subscribing. And if you want to support us financially, appreciate that. My family appreciates that. You can be a member. And unfortunately, I couldn't do a members hangout, guys. My deepest apology to you, members. Yesterday, I was up since 11:30 the following day, the previous day. We had a red-eye flight back. I think it was at 5 a.m. So it basically was up the entire night and well into the afternoon. When 2 o'clock came around, I was dying of sleep, and I just thought it wouldn't benefit anybody if I did a members hangout. So my apology to you members. Don't worry, next Sunday, God willing, we will be able to do a members hangout. But anyway, yeah, so in terms of so-called Preston's debate, I have it saved. I haven't seen it yet, though. Okay. Yeah, I got to see it, too. So, yeah, missed it. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like most of you weren't able to watch it. And SoCal is a friend. In fact, sometimes he's even at these chill streams. And I feel really bad about that because it's always a blast. And I'm sure it was a remarkable debate. SoCal was primed and pumped. He was pumped and thrilled to do this debate. And he does a lot of really cool research. He explores areas I never looked into. So I always appreciate his information. And yeah, we'll have to do what we'll do is we'll do a debate breakdown on the channel. Maybe we'll have SoCal on there, and we can maybe get the highlights or lowlights of the debate. The first debate was pretty raucous. It got very contentious, and the second debate very well ended up the same way. So it's pretty rare you see a canon debate because Protestants normally wouldn't touch the topic of the canon with a 10-foot pole. So kudos to T-Fan that he's willing to stand in the gap and defend the Protestant canon. I mean that sincerely. I'm so glad that he's willing to do. I wish more Protestants were willing to do that, especially somebody who's capable of defending the Protestant canon. You're good. Be kind to yourself. Yeah. Well, guys, I wish I could watch and do everything. By the way, the link's up there if anybody wants to come on board. Otherwise, I think we'll just do a nice short 1-hour chill stream today. Still trying to get into the swing of things, guys. I went way off my diet. To my shame, I put on some weight. Now I'm going to pay the price. It's a good thing it's Lent. I could offer all the sufferings in the gym. SoCal debated Turton fan. T-Fan. Yep. Thrilled and pumped. Awesome, Denzel. It's good to see you. Yes, it was T-Fan. Yes. And now Turton fan is Reformed. Reformed is it's got a weird epistemological stance when it comes to the canon. I try to understand the Reformed position, steel-maned it but it's very difficult to do. How about anybody see Sam Shamoon? I was able to watch Sam's breakdown of the Horn Rogers debate, and actually Sam focused on the canon, and he did a remarkable breakdown of the Horn Rogers debate, which is on Sola Scriptura, not the canon. But of course, you're always good into the canon when you get into Sola Scriptura. You look good. No need to shed more weight. No, I do. Honestly, I can feel it. I can feel it. And I was because I put on some weight, and I've been doing this for a little while. I can feel just a few extra pounds, and it's not good. And I wish when I was in Florida, I didn't have the extra weight. I probably would have a lot more energy than I did. Watch some of it. Okay. Yeah. What do you think, Janice? Trent Horn is he puts on a clinic. He's a very good debater, very nonplussed, extremely lucid thinker. He nails Rogers a couple of times. From what I saw on Sam's channel. And by the way, guys, show some love to Sam Shamoon. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff if you haven't. Shamoonian, I highly recommend you watch it. It's a 3-hour breakdown, but Sam does a very good job showing how Rogers is really out of his league when it comes to the canon. And Trent Horn does a great job too. Yeah, I like Trent too. Very good guy. And a friend of the channel too, by the way. I should probably, Counselor Trent, show some love over there, guys, if you haven't subscribed and stuff. Sam is absolutely right. We all have our lanes, areas of expertise. And if you stay in your lane, you do a lot more good for everybody than if you move out of your lane. Some people have multiple lanes, like Sam has multiple lanes. With me, I've been focusing so much on the canon recently. A lot of the other stuff has gotten rusty. So that's why I try not to do too much outside of the subject of the canon. I like Trent. Let's see. What's this for? Not sure. Is that the Horn debate link? Wait a second, please. Okay. By the way, good morning, Tuesday. You subbed. Awesome. How about you do a team stream with Trent Horn on the canon and intercession of the saints? That's a really good idea. I could probably fire him an email and see if he wants to do it. He's a busy guy, but I'll give it a shot. I'm not sure if we had him on the channel. Now I think about it, I don't remember Trent coming on. Okay, and the channel. I have no idea what you're talking about, Tuesday. Yes, thank you, Byzantine. Yeah, very nice breakdown. I actually could even dice and slice more than Sam does, but Sam does a very, very good job. It's even worse for Rogers. There's a couple of things I would have jumped on a little differently than Trent or Sam, but it's all good. I mean, he really did know he was out of his league in terms of canon. Okay. Okay. So I guess somebody was kind of nasty in the chat room. Well, the mods can. I think the mods can banish them into the outer darkness. Um, if not, I can. Uh, it's always if someone becomes a distraction, then I guess it's good to banish. But I like to extend grace to people because, like, my all my Protestant friends, initially, when they are confronted with the truth about stuff like this, they have a very violent, um, um, I don't know if violence a good word for it, but, a pretty big pushback, and so they vent in the chat room. But sometimes it softens, and the more they're there watching, so they could benefit. So I'm always a little reticent to, banish people unless they're just there simply to waste time. Then I think they deserve being banned, especially when we're polite and saying, "You're off topic, and this is not what the channel's about," and they persist, then they're banished. But I always like to extend grace because you never know. Um, they could change. I like zeal. Guys, if someone's very zealous and they're very anti-Catholic, anti-Orthodox, whatever, that's a good sign because it shows they have fire in the belly. They believe in truth. The hardest people to convince are the indifferent, those that don't have the fire in the belly. Those people are incredibly hard to win over. Simply, they just don't have any of that momentum or desire. So I would rather deal with somebody that's very passionate versus somebody that really doesn't care. Other link. Oh, that's weird. Don't know why it's disappearing. I've never been very keen on him either. And when I looked at his stuff on the Canon, I honestly don't think he. And this is kind of system. I think this is a little bit like you find it a lot in Reformed apologetics. They really don't care about the opposition because they're they kind of they're elect, so that arguing with people really doesn't matter. Did you say the word of the day? I missed it. No, I have. We haven't even talked about the secret word. That's a really good point, guys. Start thinking about a secret word, especially for this chill stream because it's been pretty sleepy. Oh, when it's live, yeah. I got to do it when it's live. I can't do it when we're not live. At least I think unless I go into the exclusions, and I don't know how to do that. God bless you, Gary. I got my fiance who's willing to become Catholic at Easter. Read the Book of Tobit, and she's loving it, and her eyes are open. Oh, that's awesome! Opening eyes. That's what we do here in the channel. That's great. Well, God bless you, Lena. God bless your fiance. That is exciting news. Truly is. Yeah, I don't know. If I see it, I'll look, okay? But I think I have to do it when he's on. I have a hard time with Sam calling people bastards, and yeah. It does make him look unstable. You're right. But, see, the thing with Sam is I get it. He's a vet like me, and there's a point when you're dealing with the same kind of issues over and over again, it's hard to be patient, especially when you see things coming a mile away. Sam's very good at that. There's people that I would be more patient with than he would be, and then it turns out he's right. So the other thing too, Sam deals a lot with Christian Muslim apologetics, and in Islam, and it might not even be Islamic, it might just be a certain region of the world. People associate strength or ferocity with truth. And I've run into that the few times I actually dealt with Muslims or people, Middle Eastern people. It's like they would view me as weak because even though everything I say is true, at least I try to be true all the time, the force of argument's not as important as showing that you are tough and that you are convicted and that you're very verbose. And so Sam has been in that arena for so long too. That's another reason I think he is so he is like he is, because when non-Christians view him, when they see him acting like that, they associate that with truth, that this guy must have the truth because no one would act that way if they didn't. I know it's weird, but there's a psychological dimension to that area of apologetics. But if you can, I get you, Doubter 04. I feel the same way. Like, I wish it would be more content rather than name calling. But I get Sam, though. So it is what it is, right? And his content is gold. I really enjoy his content. And his breakdown of Trent Horn is fantastic. And yeah, he does do a lot of name calling at the beginning of that stream. We want you to come up with the secret word. Makes it look more authentic. Well, yeah, but I try to, usually James Tay is here and he comes up with the secret word. Hilary Poitier. There we go. We got Hilary Poitier. So, guys, let's finish the stream, shall we? The secret word is Hilary of Poitiers. If you want Saint Hilary of Poitiers or Hilary or any way you want to express it, I want you to be able to flex to the world that you stayed awake during one of my chill stream presentations, and put Hilary in the chat room, guys. There's a couple of comments. Let me just get to these really quick before we go, though. Yeah, a lot of ex-Muslims become Christians, say Muslims listen and respect you more when you talk like Sam does. Yes, there is that psychological dimension, which is really tough for me because whenever I get into that role, I got to be tough and pushy and stuff, and that's just not me. I think Sam is trying to have more. Yeah, I think so too. But I totally get Sam, though. Totally get him. So I think it's a mixture of both. Just he's a veteran. He's seen these things a million times, and he can kind of sense whether somebody's wasting time and not really listening and care about the contents, and when they're open. And also, since he's in that arena of apologetics, where you have to be really aggressive, I think that's just rubbed off on him. But nevertheless, what's important, though, is contents for me, and Sam has very, very good content. Yep. So, and he usually comes here and sleeps in the chat room, too. So we put him to sleep. All right, guys, time for me to get going. I got to get back in the gym. This is going to be a painful experience. So keep me in your prayers. And I don't know. I'm going to see if the guys are up for doing a team stream today. Actually, no, I can't do a team stream, guys. I have a brand new book. I don't have the book here on the Messiah. It's going to be coming out. We're going to kick off the marketing. I have a marketing meeting. So keep your eyes out for the book. And yeah, he does have a gift for sniffing out trolls. That's true. Okay, guys. Hilary Poitier is our secret word. Thank you so much for watching. Truly appreciate it. Probably not going to do a team stream today, but possibly tomorrow. Otherwise, next chill stream is Wednesday. So keep your eyes open. Till then, God bless. Have a great day. Bye-bye.